talks about the principal approval basis.
Okay. So good afternoon and welcome everyone to this monthly webinar. Today's webinar will be covering the aspects of the role of technical barriers or technical non-tariff barriers and non-technical regulations in facilitating trade within the continent. And the theme is essentially looking at having a common regulatory framework within the continent. Whether this is possible, and these are the discussions we are going to have today, for a common regulatory framework in the continent that supports the implementation of the FCFTA. I will be moderating. I'm Ruben Gisore, Technical Director, African Organization for Standardization. I'll be moderating this webinar on behalf of the Secretary General, who will be joining us from some points in the African continent. So in our discussions today, we are looking at what is the environment within which people do business, within which trade takes place. We understand from the moment the discussions on the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade happened, the issues of tariffs have gone down. The understanding has been made that the tariffs can be reduced. But as tariffs are reduced, then we are left with another situation where the non-tariff measures happen to arise. And these arise from the technical aspects as well as from non-technical aspects. Now, on the technical aspects, we are looking at product-specific requirements. For example, there are those that give you limits on certain aspects. For example, if it is pesticide residue limits, if it's about heavy metals, if it's about sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Now, these are some of the aspects. Of course, the intention is that they are addressing concerns of health, environment, and ensuring that there is safety in the products that we handle. But if they are not handled well, and sometimes they are handled in a manner that is not transparent, then they result in becoming technical barriers to trade. The other aspects include now the non-tariff measures that include aspects of licensing, franchises, excess duties and such, which arise when you are trying to do business in territories outside your own country. And you find that even in some cases, you're given limits to how much of the goods you can export to a certain country. So there are those quantitative restrictions, as well as you have financial terms of payment. Sometimes people do not want you to pay in certain currencies, they want you to pay in foreign currencies and such. So these are some of the things that we are looking at, and we are wondering whether is it possible for us to have a common regulatory framework within the continent that would make the achievement of the aspirations of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement to be realized, rather than having a nice agreement. And then you find that we have these non-tariff measures, we have these non-tariff barriers that make the fulfillment of that agreement to become impossible. So today we have a panel of presenters who will also be giving us their views on how this can be done. And they come from various backgrounds. And the idea is to share the ideas, to share their views, to share the experiences in order to understand what kind of environment are we looking at creating that would enable us to trade in a manner that makes it possible to be profitable, makes it possible to have free movement of goods, and therefore achieving the aspirations within the continent for the free movement of goods. To start us off, we have Dr. Eric Migabo, who is a pharmacist with a master's degree on drug analysis, PhD in cell biology, currently working as the head of Food and Drugs Inspection and Safety Monitoring Department at the Rwanda Food and Drugs Authority. So Eric, before this position, was serving as the division manager for human medicines, devices, assessment and registration in Rwanda, in the Rwanda Food and Drugs Authority. He's also has been a lecturer also of clinical pharmacology at the University of Rwanda. He was also a quality inspector in Rwanda Standards Board, a quality testing officer in Rwanda Standards Board, and chief pharmacist in Bugesera District Hospital. So he also sits as a member of the board of directors of Rwanda Medical Supply Limited and a member of various technical committees in the Rwanda Standards Board. So using his experience, the topic is going to present is the role of technical regulations in regional value chains, development and management, and the need for regulatory collaboration, and also give us the experiences from his serving in the various capacities on how the collaboration between the regulatory agencies is important for the regional value chains. Dr. Eric, you have the floor and you can proceed, please.
Yeah, thank you, thank you very much, Ruben. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I'm Eric, as the moderator said, and I work with Rwanda FDA. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Can you see it?
Not yet.
But if you find myself delaying, then you can help me because I shared my presentation to you. Mr. Ruben, can you help me, please?
Okay, done. Maybe you project the presentation, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dan. I'm going to talk about the role of technical regulations in regional value chain development and management, and the need for regulatory cooperation. And I'll be sharing the experience of Rwanda. Next slide, please. Technical regulation means the standards and compulsory specifications that are applicable to certain products and operations or processes which can play an important role in regional trade. So our country, which is located in the region and the continent, is committed to promote the initiative that aim to eliminate or to remove all the technical barriers to business. Rwanda is also committed in supporting a common regulatory framework in Africa, not only in Africa, but also in the region. And knowing that Rwanda is a member of ARSO, and it even hosted the General Assembly in 2021, last year in June. Next slide, please. So the technical regulations, they are usually issued by regulators, and those regulators, they are institutions which operate under different agencies or ministries. So in the case of Rwanda, we have different institutions. The first one is RICA. RICA stands for Rwanda Inspectorates, Competition and Consumer Protection Authority, and they deal with unprocessed foods. So, and they're also mandated to protect the consumers. So ourselves as Rwanda FDA, we are mandated to regulate human medicines, vet medicines, processed foods, and chemicals and household cleaning products. So we have another regulator which develops and administers more regulations that are in transports, utilities like water, electricity, and they are also involved in ICT sector. Another one is the RSB, which is we also go to ARSO through RSB, all of us from Rwanda. And the RSB is mandated to develop standards which are used to certify the products that we see on the markets. Next slide, please. So we have a National Trade Facilitation Committee at national level. And before we go through that committee, we have to know that our government ratified the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. And that agreement is implemented in Rwanda through the Ministry of Trade, and is composed with different institutions, namely Rwanda Standard Board, as I said earlier, our Rwanda FDA, RICA, and we have also Rwanda Agriculture Board. We have also the National Agriculture Export Development Board, the private sector, and Rwanda Development Board. So these institutions, they are operating under different ministries, but they are coordinated at the Ministry of Trade and Industry to be together. So the purpose of this team is to implement and to make sure that it contributes to the national trade policy and to improve the trade environment by promoting the transparency, simplification of business, harmonization of the processes that we use, and the standardization of cross-border operations in order to reduce either the time or the costs to import and export of the goods at the borders. So in 2018, Rwanda has signed the African Continental Free Trade, among the first countries that signed that agreement. Rwanda was among the first one. Next slide, please. So what are the importance of cooperation among regulatory bodies? So now we have to understand that nowadays regulators cannot isolate themselves. So if you isolate yourself, then you will be a barrier, you'll be an obstacle to others. So that's why Rwanda decided to participate either in regional or international regulatory activities by taking part into standard settings, standard harmonization processes, and cooperations with other regulatory bodies. So we can cite examples at international levels such as ISO, IEC, Codex Alimentarius, World Trade Organization, etc., etc. But also at the regional level, we are in ESC, we are in COMESA, we are at ARSO level, DADC, etc., etc. We also participate in regional and international committees, ESC level, ARSO level, ISO level, and then in various technical committees. Next. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, so we also have to understand that the participation of each country at the regional or international levels has a significant advantages. So for Rwanda, it helps us removing the barriers to regional and international business. It also helps us to influence regional and international standard development process because we do participate in those meetings. It also helps to create regional and international pathway and markets. It also helps Rwanda to avoid the waste of resources by reinventing the wheel or the operations. It also helps to improve the doing business that we have as a target in Rwanda to easy business. It also helps to safeguard the public health and safety by establishing a base of standard for application to local or imported products in the regulated areas. So thank you very much. I look forward for the questions and comments so that we can have more discussions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. And it's very interesting to see the kind of establishment that you put in place. For example, the National Trade Facilitation Committee, which brings together the key players in the regulatory sector. Following on that, and this is something that perhaps the others would like to learn, what are the challenges that you see? What are the main challenges of technical regulations in regional value chains, as if you look at it from your point of experience? Sorry, you're muted. Huh? Eric, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, so now I'm unmuted. So as I said in my presentation, I was saying that regulators cannot work in isolation. So the main challenge that we have in technical regulation is that most of the time, in our case, we have different regulators, and sometimes their area of operations or the mandate, sometimes they are overlapping. So maybe you can find someone from one institution or one body at the border, and then before the customer maybe take the product into the country, maybe he has to go into different offices, and that takes a lot of time, and it is also costly because time is money. So for our case in Rwanda, because we saw that it's a challenge, because we used to have staff from RSB, Rwanda Standard Board, from Rwanda FDA, from RICA at the same border. So that was a big challenge to customers, and it was we realized that, and it was a challenge to customers. It was taking too long time for the good to be imported to facilitate the trade. So our government decided to bring all those stakeholders together and to put their requirements together so that we can pull out our staff from the borders and train the staff from the customs on what we do at the border so that they can remain operating at the borders, doing our job at the border. So instead of passing through 5 offices, now you can pass in 1 office and finish all the operations and import your product easily. So that was the main challenge, and that's how we handled the situation in Rwanda. Thank you.
Yeah, so following on that, and that's a very interesting scenario, because when you look at the volumes of trade, and indeed, because we have very low volumes of goods, when you compare our countries with the other developed countries, the number of things that move across the borders are so much to the point that if we were to have all these offices, then it would be almost impossible to actually have the clearances done within the minimum amount of time that is required, perhaps for perishable goods. So is this a system that you can recommend? And if it is a system that you can recommend, how do you get to ensure that the customs people can actually understand what to look for, so that they do not compromise on the safety or health of the people by allowing products into the country which are not the right quality or the safety? What kind of training would you recommend for them to do?
So it's also a little bit challenging, because those people from the customs, their educational background may differ from ours, because ours is more technical than theirs. So what we do, we try to develop some checklists that are easy to understand for them. And we make sure that we put different focal persons in our institutions. So it's like a desk office within our institutions to be able to answer to the most difficult question that they may have at the borders, so that they can answer their concern on time, on every time. That's one. Then in the beginning, you have to train those custom staff, and then those kind of trainings have to be regular. So you need to update them on regular basis. So for our cases, we pulled out our staff 6 months ago, and now we went there again to train them again, so that we make sure that they are not forgetting what we taught them. And then we need to also to be in touch with them through those focal persons at the headquarters of our institutions. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Eric. We will come back to you later on, perhaps before we close the webinar. And I think this is something that the other countries may wish to share their experiences, because you'll find at some of these border points a big number of offices that people have to move from. And by the time perhaps they are through, the day is gone, and therefore they have their goods stuck there, maybe sometimes a day to some of them up to 1 week. And this does not really facilitate trade as we expect, but rather now creates an environment where trade cannot really take place to the extent that we would have liked for that to happen. Thank you very much, Eric, for sharing with us that experience. And we look forward to getting more from you at some point later on. If not in this webinar, maybe perhaps in the future, when we are looking at how to make Africa work. So the next presenter we go to is Bia Budu. Mr. Bia Budu is a citizen of Mauritius. He holds a postgraduate degree in analytical chemistry from France. Also holds a graduate certificate in environmental management from the University of Adelaide, Australia. He is a chartered chemist and a member of the Royal Society of Chemistry in the UK. He lives in Switzerland. He has worked in the private sector, namely food and pharmaceutical industries in Mauritius. He then joined the government sector and occupied the following posts: Deputy Director, Mauritius Standards Bureau, Deputy Director in the Mauritian Department of Environment, Director of the Mauritius Accreditation Service. He has also conducted technical assistance projects in Africa and for UNEP and UNIDO. I joined ARSO as Director of the Department of Director of the Development and Training Services Unit, DEVIT, and in 2007 until 2014. Since 2014, he has conducted several technical assistance projects for UNIDO, PTB, and other agencies in the area of quality infrastructure and policies. Currently freelance consultant for PTB, intervening occasionally to support the various projects in upgrading the quality infrastructure in Africa. He is a familiar face in our environment in terms of the quality infrastructure. And we do expect that he has gathered that experience he wishes to share with us on understanding the NTBs technical and tariff measures and their technical barriers to trade effects, why African quality policy is strategic for Africa for a common regulatory framework. And I believe as we move forward, we are looking towards having a common regulatory framework in the continent in a manner that enhances our collaboration, our understanding of the risks for any goods that we are dealing with, and therefore facilitating free movement of goods in the continent. Welcome, Bia, and take us through your presentation and share with us your experiences. Thank you. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Ruben. Good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Unfortunately, my camera is not working, so you'll only hear my voice. I hope that will suffice. So, we've been working on the Africa quality policy since 2019, and probably many of you have been involved in the long process that has taken place to develop and get this Africa quality policy approved. The African Union Summit in February 2022 this year, they endorsed the Africa quality policy, which means that there is a kind of the highest level political support in implementing the Africa quality policy. So I'll share my screen, just bear with me. Can you see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we are going to see why the Africa quality policy is going to be important for the common regulatory framework, and why common regulatory framework. I think technical regulations are developed by different regulators in a given country, and when you multiply the number of countries in Africa, the amount of divergence among technical regulations can be so huge that it is unmanageable. So I think everybody is looking at having a regulatory framework that everybody uses, every country uses in Africa, to develop technical regulations in a similar manner. So we are going to touch on that. What are the drivers for regulatory policy in Africa because of this, the need that we have in Africa? First of all, at the international level, it's the Wto Tbt Agreement. It talks about technical regulations, which is a technical barrier to trade that can become a technical barrier to trade if improperly developed. So technical regulations should not be prepared, adopted, or applied to create unnecessary obstacles to trade. That's the highest level Wto Tbt Agreement, which tells us how technical regulations should be developed. Then we've got the AFCFTA, Protocol of Trade on Trade in Goods, and it says that the state parties shall promote compliance with the Wto Tbt Agreement. So it confirms that African countries, at least the state parties to the AFCFTA, have to promote compliance with the Wto Tbt Agreement and the application of good regulatory practices. It is mentioned. We will talk about the good regulatory practices a bit later. That's when we are preparing a regulatory framework for Africa. Among the things that countries should apply in developing technical regulations, they should apply good regulatory practices. There are many other things that they need to do as well. And then AQP, as I have mentioned, it's a political message from the African Union to go in a certain manner. We have objectives in the Africa quality policy, and at the continental level, the specific objective is to assure that the African Continental Technical Regulatory Framework complies with the requirements of the AFCFTA and the Wto Tbt Agreement. So that's the overall objective in the AQP. So among all these drivers, you see there's a common message: applying good regulatory practices and complying with the Wto Tbt Agreement. At the national level, the AQP also suggests that each country should establish a national technical regulatory framework. We call it NATREF here for simplicity as an acronym. It's because at the level of a country itself, technical regulations are not prepared in a uniform manner. So they need to have something to ensure that it is prepared in the same way by all regulators in a given country. And at the regional level, we've got some regs who have a responsibility to develop and apply technical regulations. So they need a regulatory framework as well. And all these regulatory frameworks at the national level, at the reg level, and at the continental level, they have to be the same. So that's why we need a continental technical regulatory framework that everybody can look at and apply it. Now, the actions carried out so far under financial support from PTB, which has been helping, and it's a support project to Africa, there are quite a number of things that has been done. We are presently in the process of preparing a consultation paper on this African Continental Technical Regulatory Framework, and it will be subjected to consultation among all member states. It will briefly contain all the procedures, policies, principles, and things that are needed to ensure that technical regulations are prepared in a way that is compliant with the WTO, TBT, and AFCFTA, agreements. So it will be something on which members will need to agree how they wish to proceed, and then they will have to apply it. AQP, of course, has been approved by the AU. So we have an action plan that was discussed by the PACI Joint Committee. And for the ATREF implementation, we have already identified 32 activities that needs to be done: education, training, preparation of baseline documents, things like this. So there's quite a lot of things that are already in the pipeline to implement as soon as resources are available. Now, the PACI AUC has commissioned UNCTAD. UNCTAD has developed a methodology to look at regulatory distance. This is a parameter that looks whether regulations are prepared in a similar manner, whether regulations are equivalent, or whether the framework to prepare regulations are equivalent among countries. So they will develop this parameter of regulatory distance. It provides information, if you wish, in a very summary manner, to the extent of regulatory convergence or divergence among countries. So the regulatory distance measure is good to know whether countries are working, have similar technical regulations or not. So it will allow us to identify the effort that is needed to achieve convergence, because if there is a wide regulatory distance, it means that a lot of effort has to be done for countries to come together to have similar types of regulations. We've also done a study on regulatory cooperation in Africa that we presented at the roundtable in April. And this is something that shows where countries are in their regulatory frameworks, how they prepare regulations, whether they are doing it in a certain manner or not. And there are if you wish, there are some principles against which those things are measured that we will update and go a bit further into detail at another step. but already we have kind of a baseline because not much information is available for African countries. So whatever we have put it in a report that may be available, that might be circulated by Ruben Gisor afterwards. It just gives us an idea of what cooperation is, regulatory cooperation. So during that roundtable, we also presented the way we are going to implement the structures that are going to implement the AQP and the ACTREF. The ACTREF is the Continental Regulatory Framework. The governance of the AQP stays with the STCTIM that can delegate to a AQP council. So STCTIM may delegate to an AQP council to implement day-to-day matters. Whereas for the ACTREF, it was proposed that it should be the AFCFTA structures that should implement the ACTREF framework. The Continental Technical Regulatory Framework is something that could be implemented under the AFCFTA Secretariat and so on. So the governance here, we see that it's the Council of Ministers of AFCFTA for ACTREF and STCTIM for AQP. For the administrative form, of course, the AQP is located at the AUC Commission, the African Union Commission, and for the ACTREF, it is proposed that it should be at the AFCFTA Secretariat. Now, the technical management for the AQP is provided by the council that is going to be created somewhere around September, I think. And for the ACTREF, the technical management is a subcommittee on technical barriers to trade that is going to provide the technical management on how to implement the technical regulatory framework in Africa. And similarly, for the national institutional structure, for AQPs, we have the equivalent of national quality policies, and it has its own governance at the level of the country. For the technical regulatory framework, as I suggested, as I mentioned before, we want countries to have a national technical regulatory framework at the national level, and that governance should be with the National Monitoring Committee on NTBs that is created under AFCFTA. So if you wish, the technical regulatory part of the Africa Quality Policy is something that it is proposed should be implemented at the level of the AFCFTA because they are the most deeply involved in these matters. So I think as I mentioned, the ACTREF is one of the 7 focus areas of the AQP. Other focus areas are standardization, metrology, accreditation, and so on. So ACTREF is fully part of the AQP. So that's why it is important to have this link. Implementation, as I mentioned, although technical regulations is under the focus of Africa Quality Policy, its implementation goes to the structure that are more closely involved with technical regulations. So if you wish, the AQP will continue to support the continental quality infrastructure system in a holistic approach, because what is important here is that the quality infrastructure works as a system. If there is one thing that doesn't work in there, nothing works. You can have the accreditation bodies, the best standards bodies, but if you don't have metrology in your country, you don't have traceable measurement standards, then nothing stands. So it is a system, and the AQP is designed to be managed as a system. And because the technical regulations form parts of the AQP, it means that technical regulations will always be under the observation of the AQP implementation. So I think that's why, in a nutshell, it is important. AQP is important to come up with a technical regulatory framework, first of all, and then to oversee its implementation and to make sure that it is always up to date and according to what countries need. So thank you. That should be all for my part, Ruben.
Yeah, thank you, Bia. And a lot of progress being done there under the PACI and the AUC. Now, one question, this is perhaps not what was written down, but I take a question that has been given in the chat by Manuel Mutale, and he's asking, with respect to the what you are calling the convergence or divergence of the technical regulations in the continent. Shouldn't the study on the similarities and dissimilarities have been done in a first approach, focusing on the regs first before going to individual countries? That's the question I get from Manuel Mutale, Zambia. Then the other question that you get, I think this you can answer both in quite, you know, they are not very dissimilar. When you look at technical regulations, they are kind of territorial in nature. And you find that technical regulators will always argue that what they are doing is in accordance with the laws of their countries and in the interest of their countries. So then how do you see, or what kind of challenges do you see ahead when we are trying to have a common regulatory framework in the continent? Looking at the divergence of the countries that we come from south to north, east to west, and looking at the environment in which these countries operate, is it realistic to expect that we shall be having a common regulatory framework in the near future?
Thank you very much, Ruben. There's very important, interesting and important questions. I think for the regulatory distance, as I said, UNCTAD has developed a methodology and they have applied it in the Asia Pacific region to try to measure in what way the regulatory system of Vietnam is different from the regulatory system of Malaysia, for example. And they have been able to measure this distance, and they know that there are certain things that needs to be done in Vietnam or Cambodia to try to come up with the regional average, how the more advanced countries operate. So for Africa, when we were looking at the technical, when we were looking at the AQP implementation in the technical regulatory area, we thought that these are kind of data that is lacking in Africa. If you go on the internet, there is not much information that you can get. And UNCTAD already had carried out these studies in some African countries already, but they were saying that the information wasn't very much, should I say, dependable and reliable, because they didn't get all the information they needed from those countries. So they have selected another 10 countries trying to consolidate the data that they already have in Africa. So it means that what they have been contracted by PTB to do is add another set of 10 to 12 countries in addition to the data they already have on other African countries. We won't be having it for all 50 plus countries in Africa for the time being, because it takes a lot of time, it costs a lot of resources, but it's not according to regs, it's according to the countries on which UNCTAD already had some preliminary information. That's how we are going. But once the information is obtained, of course, it can be classified in terms of regs to see how regs are doing and so on. But I think it will be a kind of data on which both regs and countries can build upon to try to see where there are differences and why there are differences, and try to already tackle the issues as quickly as possible. Now, coming to the second question, we are not, the technical regulatory framework at the continental level is not really aimed at having every country having the same regulation. I think WTO Tbt also allows countries to have technical regulations according to the national needs. And I think we have always emphasized that technical regulations is a right of the country. It's a sovereign right of the country. They decide in which area they have to take technical regulations, what these technical regulations are going to be to protect, you know, whatever they need to, whatever policy objective they have. They take technical regulations for that, and nobody's going to tell them not to do that. So I think countries are sovereign in this. But the technical regulatory framework is going to be more on the processes, because it's not only the technical regulations, the content itself, but how it is being enforced, how it is being developed, whether there are consultations with stakeholders, with industry, whether they inform people what they are doing, how do they refer to standards in technical regulations? Do they refer to standards in part, or do they refer to the whole standard? I mean, there are many issues that are needed, on which guidance is needed for countries to develop technical regulations. So the technical regulatory framework is going to address this issue by giving them the information and the training and the guidance of how to go about developing technical regulations once a policy objective is identified by a country and they see that there is a need for a technical regulation. There might not be a need. And the framework should also tell them, investigate other areas, other processes, not necessarily technical regulations, because implementing technical regulations is heavy. So do a regulatory impact assessment, try to see whether you can manage it without preparing technical regulations. But if you need to prepare technical regulations, these are the guidance how you should go about it. And once you have done these technical regulations, how do you enforce it? How do you make sure that laboratories that enforce it are accredited and things like this? I mean, there are a lot of issues that goes together for these technical regulations, the development and the enforcement. And that's where the technical regulatory framework is going to provide guidance, not telling countries what they should adopt as technical regulations, but telling them how they should develop the technical regulations. Now, if countries have technical regulations that are different because they have drafted it, you know, at different times and they are different, but both countries wish to pursue the same objective, there is no, if they wish to pursue the same regulatory objective, there might not be a need to have different technical regulations, or they can see that these technical regulations by the two countries could have a potential of being recognized by each other because they have the same regulatory objectives. So the focus again during this technical framework is to help countries think about regulatory objectives. The regulatory objective should be the same. If it's for protecting people, it's the same in Zambia, it's the same in Zimbabwe, anywhere else. So look at regulatory objectives instead of preparing technical regulations that are different and which is difficult to implement. So the issue of convergence is about convergence of regulations, not so much of the technical regulations themselves, but of the regulatory objectives. So that's a bit in a nutshell how the technical regulatory framework at the continental level is going to provide guidance, how we should go about it at the level of countries or RECs or whatever. Thank you, Ruben. I hope it's a bit long, but I hope
yeah, thank you very much. You know, this even if it took long, the issue has been that when you talk of having a common regulatory framework, people misunderstand it to mean that you want to harmonize the technical regulations. which is not exactly the way we view things at the moment, because that requires a lot of resources, it requires a lot of time, it requires a lot of comparisons, and to some extent, a lot of sovereignty ceding. So having a common regulatory objective would be the best approach in the instance of saying that we need to check what kind of sectors we have, which kind of regulations exist, and how close are the regulations are, so that you can have a recognition of equivalence and therefore start having trade happening. Because if we don't do that, we shall always be thinking that the FCFTA agreement has been done in vain. Now, let me just give guidance to our participants that at the moment we are not opening direct questions. What we would like to see is that you type the questions in the chat, and then we can take them up. So if you can please type the questions in the chat, it will be very easy for us to address them. We will have the panelists answer them. Thank you very much. So Bia, we will come back to you again, maybe later, but at the moment, let's take the presentation from our colleague, Aka Kwas, is from the ECOWAS region. And he is going to take us through technical regulations, development and harmonization in the context of the FCFTA agreement, experience of UNIDO in support to regional integration in West Africa, that's ECOWAS. So Aka Kwas is the Chief Technical Advisor of the West African Competitiveness and Quality Infrastructure Project and Special Advisor to the ECOWAS Commissioner of Industry and Private Sector Promotion, UNIDO, in the framework of the West African Competitiveness Program, which started from 2018. Prior to joining UNIDO in December 2001, Mr. Kwasi was Director General of the National Standardization Body of Cote d'Ivoire, CODINOM, with UNIDO. He has held successful positions in various programs in West Africa, expert in charge of standardization of the WMO Quality Program, 2001-2005, Chief Technical Advisor of the WMO component of the West African Quality Program, 2007 to 2012, then unique Chief Technical Advisor of the two components from 2012 to February 2012 to December 2012. He has also been Technical Advisor on standardization and the quality of the Commissioner for Industry at the ECOWAS Commission in 2013, and Chief Technical Advisor of the West Africa Quality Systems Program, 2014 to 2019. Mr. Kwasi, I believe you had indicated that you would like to present in French, and I would like our participants to look at the icon, the global icon, which is next to the icon on reactions. You click on it and select English if you want to hear the presentation interpreted. So welcome on board, and we are going to take some of the questions later on that I've seen in the chat. Kwasi, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I would like, first of all, to thank you for this invitation addressed to UNIDO. And I would like to congratulate as well my predecessor that made their presentation, Mr. Hassan and Birbido, who was my boss when I were working in Ouagadougou. He was the chief technical advisor of the program I have been involved in. I see that we have 4 panelists. Most of them are presenting in English, and I would like to make mine in French. But my presentation had been translated at the last moment in English, and so I will show the presentation in English, and I will talk in French. So ma présentation va comporter 4 points, à savoir vous sortir quelques aspects concernant une situation de libre-échange par rapport au respect des normes et des règlements techniques. Le deuxième point, ça sera de ressortir un peu comment l'ONUDI a apporté son appui au niveau régional de l'Afrique de l'Ouest à harmoniser le processus de normalisation et de réglementation technique. Et dans un troisième point, je vous présenterai quelles sont un peu les principales caractéristiques de ce processus d'harmonisation de la réglementation technique. Et surtout, M. Birboudo en a parlé tout à l'heure, il ne suffit pas de mettre en place une réglementation, mais c'est surtout est-ce qu'on a le support pour réaliser l'application effective de ces règlements techniques. Ce même problème se pose au niveau des normes, tant au niveau des normes qu'au niveau des règlements techniques. C'est pour cette raison qu'il est recommandé au niveau des États, des sous-régions et au niveau continental, l'adoption de politiques nationales, régionales et continentales de la qualité, et puis de mettre en place toutes les structures qui vont soutenir la mise en application effective des normes et des règlements techniques. Et donc, en ce qui concerne le premier point, je rappelle ici que quand on est dans le cadre d'un accord de libre-échange, bon, les produits peuvent circuler librement, bon, sans véritable obstacle par rapport aux questions douanières. Cependant, il faut que ces produits ou ces services soient conformes aux exigences de ces marchés, notamment quand on se trouve au niveau de la réglementation, notamment quand il s'agit des questions de sécurité, d'hygiène, la santé des populations, des animaux, ou même de la protection de l'environnement. C'est pour cela qu'au niveau international, ça a été rappelé que des accords ont été conclus à travers l'OMC pour pouvoir définir le cadre, s'accorder sur le cadre de la réglementation ou de la normalisation au niveau international. Comme ça a été dit, les États ont la capacité de prendre des normes, mais il faut que des mesures soient prises de façon à ce que ces normes et ces règlements techniques ne constituent pas des obstacles techniques au commerce. Et donc, quand on se situe dans le cadre d'une zone économique, comme c'est le cas au niveau continental ou au niveau de la CEDEAO, il faut mettre en place les dispositions de façon à ce que cet élan de libéralisation du marché ne soit, les obstacles non nécessaires au commerce constituent de nouveaux freins. C'est-à-dire, on lève des barrières et puis d'autres barrières techniques qui vont s'imposer. C'est dans ce cadre-là, c'est pour cela qu'au niveau de l'ONUDI, le support que nous avons apporté au niveau de la région, ça a été de demander à la région de façon globale de mettre en place cette infrastructure qui permettrait non seulement d'élaborer des normes, mais aussi de pouvoir assurer leur application effective. Et la plus grosse faiblesse au niveau de l'Afrique, ce n'est pas de ne pas faire les textes, on sait les faire. On sait faire les textes, on peut faire les normes, on sait adopter des règlements techniques, mais c'est leur application effective qui pose problème. Et donc, nous avons préconisé qu'au niveau de la région, des pays ou même au niveau continental, on puisse mettre en place ces structures. C'est pour cela que dans le cadre des programmes que nous avons exécutés au niveau de la région, nous avons encouragé d'abord l'harmonisation des normes au niveau de la CEDEAO. Et ensuite, cette harmonisation s'est concrétisée par la définition des procédures d'harmonisation des normes, la mise en place d'un comité qui s'occupe de l'harmonisation des normes, qui s'appelle le TMC EcoCham. on a mis en place des comités techniques dans des domaines prioritaires et à ce jour, il y a une centaine de normes qui ont été harmonisées, adoptées, et il y a d'autres normes qui sont dans le PAC qui sont en cours d'harmonisation, notamment dans le cadre du programme actuel que nous sommes en train de mettre en œuvre concernant les chaînes de valeur. En effet, la région a un gros programme d'appui au renforcement des chaînes de valeur et la qualité est apparue comme un élément essentiel de renforcement des chaînes de valeur, et ça veut dire qu'il faut avoir sur place des infrastructures qui permettent de relever ce défi de la qualité. Alors, le mécanisme qui a été mis en place en ce qui concerne l'harmonisation de la réglementation technique, pourquoi on est allé vers cette harmonisation des règlements techniques? Ça a été rappelé par mon collègue panéliste, M. Hassan, tout à l'heure. Les mêmes questions, les mêmes problèmes qui se posent dans un pays comme le Rwanda se posent dans l'ensemble des pays, hein, par exemple de la CEDEAO, à savoir la diversité de règlements techniques, même au sein d'un même pays, des chevauchements des règlements techniques, des entreprises qui supportent toutes ces contraintes, des coûts répétés, etc. Et les méthodes de vérification de la conformité au règlement technique ou bien même les outils n'existent pas dans certains cas. Alors, rapporter cette situation au niveau régional serait une catastrophe. Et donc, pour éviter que ces questions de multiplicité, de complexité du système se rapportent au niveau régional, nous avons proposé au niveau de l'ONUDI que la région s'occupe de façon spécifique des questions d'harmonisation des règlements techniques à côté du dispositif qualité générale qui existe, par exemple, au niveau de la SADC, au niveau même continental, avec le PACI. Mais nous avons relevé que c'était un problème essentiel et qu'il fallait mettre en place un comité qui s'occuperait de ces questions, au même titre que des comités ont été mis en place pour harmoniser les normes. Donc, ce dispositif qui a été mis en place au niveau de la CEDEAO comprend un comité communautaire de réglementation technique qui a été mis en place par le Conseil des ministres de la CEDEAO, et ce comité est composé de représentants des institutions en charge de la réglementation au niveau des pays, notamment ceux qui assurent la liaison au niveau international. Et là, à ce niveau, mes prédécesseurs l'ont évoqué, au niveau des pays, souvent on ne sait pas qui va être l'interlocuteur, étant donné qu'il y a une duplicité, il y a une multiplicité, on ne sait pas qui va être l'interlocuteur, et donc ça c'est une question qui était à résoudre, et dans ce cadre-là, par exemple, nous avons recommandé qu'au niveau des pays, il y ait une centralisation des questions de réglementation technique, une harmonisation d'abord au niveau national, et ensuite ce dispositif interne national d'harmonisation serait le représentant du pays au niveau du comité communautaire d'harmonisation des normes. Alors, avec tout ceci, nous sommes arrivés à mettre en place un comité avec les procédures. Alors, c'est important aussi, si on veut harmoniser, il faut adopter des procédures très claires. Ces procédures ne doivent pas être trop rigides parce que, comme Bir l'a évoqué, la réglementation technique est censée être de la prérogative exclusive des États, et aussi ça leur apporte des ressources, et les États n'aiment pas donner cette prérogative quelquefois au niveau régional. Et donc, il faut être très prudent, pouvoir discuter avec les États au sein des comités pour parvenir à arrêter les domaines prioritaires, parce que, étant donné qu'on ne peut pas tout faire, c'est important au sein de ces comités d'arrêter des priorités. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut traiter au niveau régional? Quels sont les critères qui vont permettre de sélectionner les priorités au niveau régional? Parce que le national aussi a des choses à faire. Et nous avons, avec tout ceci, adopté un certain nombre de règlements techniques au niveau régional et le mécanisme de mise en conformité, de contrôle, de suivi de la mise en application des règlements techniques est en cours de préparation. Alors, Bill l'a rappelé tout à l'heure, et je l'ai dit aussi, il ne s'agit pas seulement de prendre des textes. Le plus important, c'est de parvenir à leur application. Ce n'est pas la quantité des textes, mais ça va être la qualité de leur application. Et dans le cadre de la CEDEAO, de façon générale, on a mis en place un dispositif qualité avec des structures de concertation entre les pays dans les différents domaines. Et en ce qui concerne l'application de la réglementation technique, il y a 3 comités particuliers qui vont être chargés de l'application effective, qui vont appuyer l'application effective des règlements techniques au niveau des pays, parce que l'application s'est faite au travers des pays, mais le suivi peut se faire au niveau régional, comme l'a présenté Wto tout à l'heure. Et donc, dans ce cadre-là, il y a l'accréditation qui est très importante. Il faut que le dispositif d'accréditation de la région soit reconnu au niveau international. Il faut que ce système soit appuyé par une métrologie fiable, raccordée à l'international, parce qu'il faut que d'abord au sein des pays du continent, on puisse s'accorder, on puisse se mettre d'accord. Donc, il faut que le système soit basé sur un système reconnu au niveau international. Et bien sûr, il faut un système d'évaluation de la conformité qui gère les questions de coopération au niveau des pays. Et donc, au niveau de la CEDEAO, nous avons un certain nombre de structures dont j'ai rappelé quelques-uns, la méthodologie ECOMET, qui est membre de AFRIMET. En ce qui concerne l'accréditation, nous avons ECORAS, qui est la structure qui s'occupe de la coordination des questions d'accréditation au niveau de la CEDEAO, mais qui regroupe 3 principaux organismes d'accréditation que sont le SOAC. Le SOAC, qui est une structure d'accréditation qui a été mise en place par l'ONUDI pour 8 pays pour les 8 pays de l'UEMOA, et qui vient d'être reconnu par l'AFRAC et qui vient d'être reconnu aussi au niveau de l'ILAC. Nous avons également dans ce lot le LINAS, qui est l'organisme d'accréditation du Nigeria, et le GANAS, qui est l'organisme d'accréditation au niveau du Ghana. Donc, on est en train d'affiner tout ce mécanisme afin que toutes ces structures soient prêtes pour soutenir la mise en application effective des règlements techniques. Donc voilà l'expérience que j'avais voulu partager avec vous. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Thank you very much, Kwasi. And indeed, this is the first, I think, regional economic community among the regional economic communities that is moving towards harmonizing technical regulations. And so the question that I see here is a question from one of our participants, and it's a question I also actually would want to ask is, how well are the processes for harmonization of technical regulations being spearheaded by REX like ECOWAS fitting into the approach that will be adopted at the continental level? For instance, if you recall, what BIA presented was that the continental level will be looking at having a common regulatory objective. While I see in ECOWAS, the process you are doing is actually harmonizing the technical regulations. How do you think the two processes can fit together? Are they good examples? Is there something to learn from ECOWAS that you can tell us? What are the challenges you are facing when you want to harmonize these technical regulations? The regional economic community, as opposed to having the regulation being done at the national level? And will it be possible for us to use the same model for the continent?
Okay, thank you very much. I will start by the second question. What are the challenges? Quels sont les challenges, les défis qu'on rencontre lorsqu'on veut harmoniser la réglementation technique? Bon, j'en profite aussi pour repartir un peu sur l'approche aussi, parce que pourquoi on a choisi l'option d'harmoniser les règlements techniques? Bill l'a dit tout à l'heure, il ne faut pas être trop rigide. Quand on regarde la réglementation technique, par exemple au niveau de l'Union européenne, on se rend compte qu'ils ont pris des règlements techniques, mais qui donnent des grandes directives. Ça donne des grandes directives, ce sont des directives que les États doivent suivre dans le cadre de leur processus d'harmonisation. Cependant, il y a un certain nombre de points où ils sont très spécifiques. Par exemple, il y a eu des directives, des réglementations techniques au niveau de l'Union européenne, par exemple, en ce qui concerne l'accréditation des laboratoires dans le domaine de la biologie médicale. Là, ils ont été très directifs en disant on prend ces directives à partir d'ici 5 ans, je crois que c'est comme ça que ça a commencé, il faut que tous les laboratoires qui doivent intervenir dans le domaine de la biologie médicale soient accrédités. Là, c'est une réglementation, ça s'impose à tous. On vous laisse un temps pour vous adapter, mais là, on est pointu. Cependant, dans d'autres domaines, il faut laisser le soin aux États de pouvoir proposer un certain nombre de solutions, mais tout en restant dans le cadre global qui a été proposé. Donc, l'approche ici au niveau de telle que proposée par Wto tout à l'heure me semble très indiquée, c'est-à-dire donner des grandes orientations, mais à mon avis, il faut aussi, lorsque c'est nécessaire pour le continent, il faut pouvoir aller plus loin en proposant des règlements techniques harmonisés, aller dans ce sens-là. Parce que ce qui arrive, c'est que si vous ne le faites pas, et c'est la situation que nous avons rencontrée au niveau de la CEDEAO, on a, par exemple, adopté un certain nombre de normes, et puis on s'est rendu compte que dans l'application des normes, les pays n'avaient pas les mêmes façons de les appliquer, ou les règlements techniques, les mêmes façons d'appliquer ces règlements techniques. Ce qui faisait qu'il y avait plusieurs barrières qui s'imposaient parce qu'au niveau des pays, existaient déjà des règlements techniques. Donc, vous avez, par exemple, on a 15 États, vous avez peut-être 13 règlements techniques qui existaient, et si un pays veut exporter vers l'ensemble des États, vous devez vous conformer à peut-être au moins 13 exigences. Donc, ça a été relevé que là où il y a diversité de réglementation technique, on puisse parvenir à une harmonisation. Et cette harmonisation qui a été proposée va être basée sur des normes qui existent déjà. Et si on veut faciliter l'application obligatoire de certaines exigences des normes, on passe par une réglementation technique. C'est en ce sens que cette directive, cette orientation de la CEDEAO est intéressante. Mais à côté, il y a la souplesse. Ce document qui a été pris, parce qu'il y a un règlement communautaire qui a été pris pour organiser la façon d'harmoniser les normes. Donc, ça prend en compte le fait que des États, on peut donner une certaine souplesse à certains États, mais dans certaines limites. Donc, si on doit faire la même chose au niveau continental, ce que j'aurais proposé, ce serait qu'il faut définir d'abord les textes au niveau continental, ça va être beaucoup plus général, beaucoup plus directif, donner des directives, des orientations, mais des domaines qui touchent l'intérêt de l'ensemble du maximum de pays où on peut avoir des conflits, on puisse aller jusqu'à proposer l'harmonisation des règlements techniques. Ça veut dire qu'il faut faire une étude très poussée pour savoir quels sont les domaines qui peuvent être prioritaires au niveau continental, quelles peuvent être les priorités au niveau régional et le reste, quand c'est les priorités nationales, ils peuvent le faire. Maintenant, l'agencement devrait être tel que quand il y a une réglementation au niveau continental, ça devrait s'appliquer au niveau des régions, ça devrait s'appliquer systématiquement au niveau des pays. C'est la règle au niveau de la normalisation aussi. Donc, voilà ce que je peux dire par rapport à cela. Donc, les challenges, j'en ai parlé tout à l'heure. Les challenges, lorsqu'on veut élaborer, harmoniser des règlements techniques, c'est que la réglementation technique est une prérogative des gouvernements. Et quelquefois, on s'est rendu compte que c'est par le biais de la réglementation que certains ministères techniques peuvent avoir des ressources, parce que ça rapporte des ressources de faire le contrôle, etc. Et donc, beaucoup de départements ministériels se ruent sur les règlements techniques pour avoir des ressources et finalement, on se retrouve dans le même pays, plusieurs règlements techniques sur les mêmes exigences et plusieurs coûts à supporter par les opérateurs économiques. Et donc, ça, c'est un des éléments et ça va se poser au niveau continental. Lorsqu'on va vouloir faire ça, il faudrait qu'au niveau, Bir en a parlé, il faudrait qu'il y ait des sortes de points focaux des points focaux en matière de réglementation, en matière d'harmonisation de la réglementation au niveau des pays. Il faut que déjà, au niveau des pays, les gens se mettent d'accord pour parler d'une même voix, pour éviter la diversité, de sorte que le pays puisse être mieux représenté au niveau régional ou au niveau continental. Donc ça, c'est un des éléments. Maintenant, l'autre difficulté, c'est que, étant donné que c'est la prérogative des États, c'est difficile d'obtenir des concessions. Quelquefois, les États ne veulent pas lâcher cette prérogative. Et donc, le challenge, c'est vraiment pouvoir faire beaucoup de concertations et discuter avec les États. Maintenant, un dernier point, bon, comment on peut transposer, j'en ai parlé, l'expérience que nous avons ici, comment on peut la transposer. Quand j'ai regardé tout ce qui a été présenté par BIR, je vois que tous les tests que nous avons pris, puis le dispositif, prend en compte la plus grande partie des orientations qui ont été proposées au niveau continental. Et donc, ce que je peux dire, c'est que la CEDEAO est un peu en avance, a souvent été en avance dans le cadre du dispositif qualité, notamment par exemple, la CEDEAO a adopté sa politique régionale de la qualité avant qu'au niveau continental, on adopte une politique continentale qualité. Et donc, je pense que la CEDEAO a pu contribuer au débat au niveau de l'adoption de la politique continentale et donc a apporté ses inputs. Mais à partir du moment où il y a quelque chose qui est au niveau continental, le niveau régional doit s'aligner et il faut réviser nos documents. Voilà, merci. Hello.
Thank you, Kwasi. And I think there are experiences to be learned, and I think it's important to notice that while on the quality aspect, on the standardization aspect, you may think you are lagging, perhaps on the technical regulations, ECOWAS is quite a bit ahead, using their own experiences. I will be reading later on. We have a very good kind of discussion from the tripartite, but I will read this later on. I would like to invite our last presenter for this webinar. This is Jared Odongo, and he will be presenting on the WTO TBT and SPS agreements, their convergence and relevance to the FCFTA agreement. Jared is a technical policy expert, principal trade officer, currently working at the Kenya Bureau of Standards. He has over 10 years experience on technical regulations, technical barriers to trade, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, and trade policy and trade negotiations. He has successfully managed the TBT National Inquiry Point for Kenya, where Kenya is currently one of the top notifying countries in the world. He has also successfully managed the WTO notification systems, which has been merged into one system for both the TBT and SPS measures. Mr. Odongo is currently a member of the National TBT Consultative Committee, and the National SPS Committee. He holds a master's in international trade policy and trade law from Lund University and advanced postgraduate diploma at Trade Policy Center at TRAPCA. Jared will take us through the convergence of the two international agreements and where their relevance applies to the implementation of the FCFTA, SPS, and TBT annexes. Welcome, Jared. Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Still coming. Yes, now put it in presentation mode, please.
Just hold on.
You can use the icon down, which looks like a wine glass, that one, yes. Click on that one. Okay, you are good to go.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
As you can see, my name is Jared Odongo from Kenya Bureau of Standards. I'm going to take you through the topic that is here, the WTO TBT and SPS agreements and their convergence and relevance to FCFTA. Okay, the outline of my presentation is the introduction to WTO TBT and SPS agreements, main obligations of TBT and SPS agreements, wide transparency, and the convergence of the relevance and the relevance to FTA agreements. Okay, the introduction to WTO TBT agreement. As you can see below, the TBT agreement focuses mainly on removing and regulating non-tariff barriers to trade in the form of technical barriers to international trade. There's also an aspect of technical regulations and standards, whereby the TBT agreements makes a distinction between technical regulations and standards, where technical regulations are mandatory measures imposed by governments, where standards are voluntary measures. Both terms are understood to cover measures based upon, one, the product characteristic, two, process and production methods related to product characteristics, three, the terminology, packaging, symbols, marking, and labeling requirements as they apply to a product, process, or production method. While in SPS agreement, which is part of the WTO agreement, the objective of SPS agreement is to recognize that members need to protect human or animal health or plant life. SPS measures is mainly to protect human or animal health and any risks arising from additives, contaminants, toxins, or diseases or organisms in food, drink, and feedstuff. Main obligations of the agreements, we have the designation of notification authority, which applies to both SPS and TBT. It is the prerogative of the national government or the central government to assign one of its departments to be responsible for the notifications, that is the notification authority. Then the second one is the establishment of inquiry points on SPS and TBT. That applies to both of the two agreements, where the national government still assigns the standards body or the body in charge of standardization to be in charge of the TBT inquiry point, while the SPS can be divided into agencies that are responsible for different sectors. For example, we have in Kenya, we have inquiry point that is in charge of plant health, that is under SPS. We have another inquiry point that is in charge of human health. We also have another one in charge of animal health and fisheries. Then the other one is a notification of draft regulations, where we have the obligation under the WTO agreement to notify SPS and TBT regulations. Then the fourth one is publication of regulations. It is one of the key obligations of the two agreements. And then the fifth one is statement of implementation of TBT. That one purely applies to TBT agreement, and the notification from standardizing bodies, which is purely on applies to TBT agreement as opposed to SPS agreement. Then why do we have transparency? One of the things that makes us consider transparency is regulatory requirements, especially when there are changes that may affect market access for certain products in a particular country, and therefore it is wise for necessary, based on the two agreements obligations on transparency, to notify or inform the rest of the trading members that these are the new regulations that are coming to be in place, and you be aware and start preparing, or if they have issues with the coming regulation, they have the room to give their comments when there's still room for comments period. Then enhance clarity, predictability. This enhances facilitation of trade and reduces trade disruptions, because when we become transparent on TBT and SPS measures, then we allow other members to have room to trade with us without causing any disruptions, but also facilitates predictability of trade within your trading partners. Then it also provides advanced warnings, more time to adapt. In other words, that a trading partner is warned while there's still room to adjust in terms of product requirements that are being put in place, or the regulatory requirements that are being put in place. The other one is improve accountability and responsiveness of regulatory system. Seek information, consult, and comment. So a country is free to be accountable to whatever actions that they take based on the new regulatory systems that they undertake. The regulatory time frame. Countries are free to draft the notifications or the regulations under step 1. Then step 2, publication of a notice. Then stage 4, notification to other members. Then 4, draft text upon request or on website. Then receive or discuss comments. Then the end of comment period. We are given about 60 days from the notification to the end of comments period. That means countries are normally given approximately 2 months, a minimum of 2 months to provide their comments, especially where there is no emergency measures that is in place. Then we have approximately 6 months for the publication of the regulation and entry into force of the regulation. And that's why you see at the right hand side, we've indicated the reasonable time and the reasonable interval. A reasonable time, that means the period that is given to members to provide their comments is reasonable enough for them to provide their comments. And the reasonable interval is to enable members to adopt appropriately to the new regulation or measure. Objectives of the SPS and TBT agreements. Majorly, if you look at the TBT agreement, its main objective is to avoid unnecessary barriers to international trade. While the SPS aspect, members, if you can see from the right hand side, the members have the right to protect human, animal, and plant life or health to fulfill the legitimate objective at levels that consider appropriate. In this, to achieve these objectives, countries are encouraged to use relevant international standards so that to avoid unnecessary trade disruptions. Convergence of the two agreements. The provisions of the technical barriers to trade, that is TBT and SPS, common characteristics and differences between their basic approaches to standards are almost similar. Ensuring that TBT and SPS agreements converge with and support the FTA trading system. The two agreements, as per the WTO requirements, they are supposed to provide necessary support to the trading among the WTO member states in terms of regulations. And the FTA includes, where feasible, a number of important best practice provisions. These include efforts to use international standards whenever possible and to recognize the importance of transparency regarding SPS in international trade, as well as TBT. Institutions where one partner is less developed than the other, the FTA incorporate technical assistance and capacity building measures to assist the developing country or partner. That is what is required in the real sense, but as far as the implementation of FTA agreement is concerned, most of our members are still way below the required standard, and some of them may require assistance in the implementation of the agreements. That is under SDT, special and differential treatment. Under the FTA, parties should agree to an overall commitment whereby technical regulations and conformity assessment procedures are always applied on national treatment basis. Members, I thank you for listening. I end there. wait for your questions where necessary.
Yeah, thank you, Jared, and thank you for your handling of the two subjects. Sometimes these are the two subjects that cause quite a lot of confusion at the member level national bodies. As Jared indicated, you'll find that on the TBT issues, most of these inquiry points are usually at the national standards bodies where they are established national standards bodies. When it comes to the SPS, you will have one inquiry point at the Plant Protection Agency, another one at the Animal Resources Center or the Veterinary Services Agency. Then you have on the food safety aspect, this would be either in the Ministry of Health, Public Health Department or something like that. So these are important aspects. But at the same time, from one of the presentations that we received, you'll see that a centralized focal point for the technical regulations and also the SPS issues is very important so that you do have a coordinated approach towards these issues. Now, the questions that perhaps would put to you, Jared, is in view of the WTO TBT and SPS agreements and the annexes that we have, and under the LCFT agreement, do you see any possibility of divergence or convergence so that we do not have any conflicts arising? And in that respect, how do you recommend in terms of the countries which are yet to have the inquiry points, what kind of recommendations do you give to them, and how do they mobilize to ensure that they have these inquiry points in place?
Okay, thank you very much, Ruben. I can see there is some divergence in the way the WTO TBT and the SPS agreements are being implemented in various countries. For example, in Kenya, you find that we have varied inquiry points in charge of SPS agreement, and while the TBT agreement is purely handled by KEBS. While in other countries, you find a centralized management of the SPS and TBT inquiry points. What I think that need to be done is to have a specialized management. Maybe we can have a centralized management of the SPS agreement under maybe the ministry in charge of SPS issues and TBT under the standards body. Because when they are managed at a central place, then the information can easily flow from one place to the other freely. But at times, the way it has been segmented in Kenya, yes, it is segmented based on the responsible agencies, but at times it becomes a little bit complicated to manage. Secondly, I think the TBT and SPS agreements are like sister and brother, because they majorly deal with regulations. And on the FTA aspect, I would recommend that we need to have a central notification system that monitors regulations from each and every country that are supposed to be notified and has not been notified, so that there is no country that can go without informing members of new or impending regulations that are likely to affect or disrupt trade between partner states. Besides that, I can also say that most of the WTO member countries who are as well members of the AFTA have the obligation to comply with the TBT agreement. But where necessary to accommodate our interests, we can go for the WTO plus in terms of those two agreements where necessary, and to accommodate the interests of the AFTA members. But where it is impossible, we can use the term that WTO minus, which of course is no longer very relevant, but we can say use it to accommodate least developed countries where S and D are applied. Chair, I submit.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jared. And I'll take some questions from the chat now, and then I'll probably see who among you as panelists would answer this. I take a question from Mafuti Kutu, and he's saying, I see that harmonization efforts focus on the Bureau of Standards system linking to regional setups such as ARSO. Have you considered that other countries set norms and standards and technical regulations for different commodities outside this framework? I don't know whether that's a question that we can ask someone to answer to, but one of the things that you will notice in our discussion here is that most countries would have different types of organizations. We are aware that some countries have, for example, Ministry of Agriculture, establishing standards for agricultural products in a very independent way, and therefore, coordinating the compliance to those standards outside the framework of the national standards bodies. So that is something that is practical and it is known. However, if you look at the international systems, then you realize that most of the agricultural commodities, for example, the international bodies that are doing standards, say Codex, ISO, are actually doing those standards in a manner that fits within the framework of the national standards bodies and in coordination with their stakeholders back home, where stakeholders would involve the regulators and other sector players. So this is something that I think Africa needs to start learning to put up and understand that the international trading system sometimes it requires that we have a coordinated approach rather than a national prerogative that you establish bodies that work outside the framework of the WTO TBT arrangement. Because if you don't have that framework, then it is going to be quite difficult for us to be able to recognize the competencies of each country's system to address issues of concern when it comes to food safety or avoiding the movement of disease vectors from one country or one region to another, simply because the way our bodies are working are very divergent. Now, perhaps Eric, you would be better placed to end, because in Rwanda you have the system in place. Have you encountered this kind of an arrangement where, for example, a body like FDA would say for processed cereals, for example, that the only body that has the unique authority in that is the FDA or is Rwanda Standards Board? I don't know how you have handled this particular aspect, because I know in some countries there is a very fine kind of definition. When it is processed products, then you will find that perhaps it is the FDA type of body that handles them. When it is not processed, then it is quite another divergent aspect. How have we handled this one, Eric, if you can share with us some experiences?
Thank you, Ruben. For Rwanda, the confusion is on the side of the business people, But for on the side of institutions, we know our mandate very well, and we know how to differentiate our scope of activities. So what we do when a businessman or woman is not sure of who to see for getting the service, then anyone that is consulted among those institutions can direct the customer to the right institution. So because we know that RICA is dealing with unprocessed food and Rwanda Fta is dealing with processed food. So we know what we do. So we direct our customers accordingly. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's something that is very important for everyone to understand, so that there is no kind of conflict of interest that
Yes.
anybody would say, this is my territory, and perhaps being motivated by either resources that they would then mobilize from getting the services to people. Yeah. Okay. The other question that is coming is an approach that I think is being taken by the tripartite. Vonesi, who has indicated to us that what they have done is to look, they have issued a kind of a study to gather the information on the kind of technical regulations that exist in each of the 29 countries that form the tripartite free trade area that comprises of COMESA, ES, and SADC. And in that, they are willing to share their results when they get the results, and they can indicate that in this sector and in this country, this is what exists, this is what you need to comply with. And I think this is another approach that can assist us, because when you look at the 29 countries, that would just leave us with perhaps 25 to make the 54, then we complete the picture of the African continent. That is something to learn from. And finally, when we look at all these scenarios, we get a picture of a continent that is in a situation that would need to be addressed, not from exactly zero, but from the experiences that we have within the continent and outside the continent. I believe that we've shared in the past webinars experiences from as far as the ASEAN countries. And in that respect, I would like to ask Abia whether there is a kind of optimism that you can see in terms of how countries, basing your experience, you've seen how the European Union started off with lots of divergent approaches, but finally having to agree on a set of approaches that have improved the way they approach, say, technical regulations in the European Union. Do you see an optimism that in the near future, this is something that we can realize? Abia.
Thank you, Ruben. Very interesting question. I think we got the European Union, we've got ASEAN, who have very good examples. The European Union, they are composed of countries that have similar levels of development, which is not the case for Africa. In ASEAN, we have a scenario where there are very advanced countries and countries that are not so much advanced, and they have adopted an approach where, for example, like Aka said, if there are areas, if there are priority products that is being traded among members, then they go and try to see they harmonize the procedures, and then they try to harmonize the technical regulations and put all the other tools that are needed to help in the implementation, like accreditation, the accredited laboratories. ASEAN, for example, if they identified electrical products as being a priority product, then they would define the standards, the technical regulations, and the standards on which they are based. They will define the laboratories that are allowed to do conformity assessment for these products. So it is a kind of a one-stop shop coming from the product that is the product or the products that are being traded. All these tools, as I said a bit earlier, the quality infrastructure is a system. Everything has to work. So ASEAN makes sure that for those products, all these systems of the quality infrastructure are designed, are consolidated, are built to allow those products to be traded, allows those technical regulations to be demonstrated, to be adhered to. So in Africa, I think it's the same kind of approach that should go on, perhaps based on RECs. In Africa, with so many countries that are at such a diverse, so much diversity in terms of their technical regulatory systems, we cannot do everything right from the start in every area. So I guess we will have to go as ASEAN, which is a very good example, look at categories of products that are prioritized, and then look at the quality infrastructure and the technical regulatory framework to see that these are adapted to those products, and then use that as an example to cover other products and other regions. I think that's the way it should go. We have good examples. I think in Africa, we can go ahead on these. We already see, for example, in the tripartite, they are doing things together because they have seen that at the REC level, it wasn't enough. So the three RECs have come together. We have seen that in ECOWAS, they're doing the same. They are doing the same thing. So as you said, we are not starting from zero. There are a lot of good examples. There are a lot of effort that has gone in Africa in the regions. I think it all needs to be pulled together and then build on that. I think that's the message. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think that approach is what we need to really look forward to having, and it should inform us on how we prioritize sectors. If we cannot prioritize all of them, at least we identify some pilot sectors, and then we can quickly move into establishing what is needed for that sector to really move. And I think we are a bigger continent with very many countries, divergent levels of development, and I think it might be something that we need to work on. So I am moving now towards the closing. We are running to the closing time, and I would like to get the last views from each one of you. I will begin with our first presenter. If there is the last point that you would want us to take away from you, what would it be? Eric, the last one.
Yes, my last word to our colleagues here is that harmonizing our regulatory document and requirements, and it's not something easy if we work independently, but if we conduct activities jointly, either in drafting those standards, drafting together the SOPs. So I think harmonizing the processes, then it will be easy for us to help our clients and to run smoothly the businesses and easy the trade across the borders. So that is the take-home message that I can give to our colleagues. We need to work together to easy business.
Yeah, thank you very much. We need to have collaboration, cooperate within the sectors and across the borders. Abia, what would be your last take?
What I would like to do, Ruben, I just share the screen as a kind of a message. If you can see it, it's the global data that we have. As I said earlier, we don't have data in Africa, and this is a big problem. So we have to look for this data through UNTAD studies and so on. But the World Bank, for example, has compiled what they call the global indicators of regulatory governance, where they talk about how do you notify and accept comments when you're preparing new regulations? How do you implement impact assessment? And how is regulatory transparency taken care of, and so on? So they have all these indicators, and out of a maximum of 5 points, they have compiled this data for the 52 countries, and you see the diversity in the 52 countries that we have. In what way they develop their regulations, the transparency, the consultation, and so on. So it means that there is a lot of ground to cover for people to, at least in the first stage, adopt the same processes for developing technical regulations. So I think we have a long road to go, but I am confident that everybody knows the problems that we need to address. And the work has started now. As I said, with the AQP, we have the political backing. Now it's a question of putting everybody together and then moving forward on that. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Bia. Quite a kind of challenge here, and also somehow inspiring that some countries are doing very well. And therefore, as I indicated, I think we have good teachers to learn from within the continent. Or good, good benchmarks that we can utilize within the continent. Thank you. Let me come to you, Kwasi. Your last take.
Ok, merci. Comme on vient de le voir, la réglementation technique est liée au niveau de développement des pays. Et donc, à tout ce qu'on a entendu, on voit qu'il y a différentes expériences, etc. Et dès l'instant où on veut aller à un niveau plus haut, il faut qu'on soit moins détail et qu'on soit focalisé sur les priorités. Il y a une réglementation au niveau international. Bon, on ne doit pas perdre cela de vue, mais quand on se trouve au niveau continental, il y a des aspects qui concernent notre continent. Quand on se trouve au niveau d'une sous-région, il y a des points communs par rapport à la sous-région, comme quand on se trouve au niveau national, on a certaines priorités. Donc, pour moi, il est important de choisir le mode de réglementation en tenant compte de notre niveau de développement, mais en sachant aussi à quel niveau on se trouve. Au niveau africain, on a plus de 50 pays. Ce n'est pas la même chose comme être au niveau de la CEDEAO avec 15 pays. Donc, il faut faire vraiment un benchmarking pour voir le meilleur type de réglementation qu'il faut adopter pour l'Afrique. La CEDEAO est en train d'expérimenter quelque chose qui semble marcher. Par exemple, on avait mis en place ce comité d'harmonisation. Au départ, beaucoup de gens étaient réticents, mais maintenant, ce sont les pays même qui proposent qu'on harmonise les règlements techniques dans certains domaines. Donc, voilà ce que je voulais dire, mais il faut qu'on adapte. Pour moi, il faut définir les priorités à chaque niveau. Quelles vont être les priorités au niveau continental? Est-ce qu'au niveau continental, on doit donner des directives? Et il faut qu'on fasse une étude pour être très clair. Et je voudrais ajouter aussi que tout ce travail-là, il faut en même temps, parallèlement, travailler sur l'infrastructure qualité qui permet de rendre effective l'application, parce que ça, c'est la plus grosse faiblesse de l'Afrique. Merci.
Thank you, Kwasi. And I think quite a good approach there. As we said, our motto in the continent is we leave nobody behind. So we leave no country behind. And so the design should be such that every country is enabled to move forward. Let me come to you, Jared, for the last word. Give us your takeaway for this particular webinar. Jared.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ruben, and the rest of the team for sparing your time this afternoon. I know most of us are very busy, but thank you very much once again for sparing your time. Now, I think we were covering these aspects of WTO Tbt and SPS agreements. These two agreements are in the core of trade, and they forms part of the instruments that can cause NTBs. So what I think members we need to do is that countries should adopt a way of doing advanced notifications to so that members are not caught off guard, and we should also avoid developing unnecessary regulations that are becoming cumbersome to implement by our trading partners. Instead, we should focus on developing regulations that are more focused in meeting our legitimate objectives. On that basis, therefore, submit my last point. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Performance-based technical regulations will be very key, rather than those that create a situation where we are not able to trade. It's important that we focus on really facilitating trade, because without trade happening in our continent, we shall always remain the last continent in terms of development. So we take this opportunity to invite you to the next webinar, and this one will be on 20th of July, and that the theme will be trade information and trade promotion, the role of the trade web portals such as the trade information, what we've talked about in ensuring that we are able to trade. Also to inform you that ARSO will be having the General Assembly events in Yaoundé, Cameroon, starting from 27th to 27th of July to 1st of July, 27th of June, sorry for that, to 1st of July this year. That time we shall take it also to create capacity for some of our committee members, and it will be a time a new president will take over in ARSO, so that our current president from Cameroon will be handing over to a president-elect, who is the DG of the Ghana Standards Authority. I welcome you all to the next webinar, and feel free to share with us any ideas that you may have that will improve on the kind of webinars that we have, the content that we present, and how you would want us to engage beyond the webinars. I thank you all, and I appreciate the feedback we get from you, and please continue. By email, you can still give us your inputs, and I thank all the presenters who offered to give us their presentations today and share their experiences. Very experienced presenters, and we look forward to really serving the continent by putting together your ideas that you may send to us. We shall collect them. The charts, we shall be collecting whatever information we have, so that they can be what we can put when we are presenting our reports at the end of the year. Thank you very much, and see you in the next webinar. Thank you.